You love it, dude. I love it. I can see the energy. This is wonderful.
We're live, Expert35. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia. As promised, 35 different industries, expert from each industry, talking about the challenges, the hardship, and the opportunity. Today, we're going to talk commercial real estate. And we got Sammy. Thank you for joining us today, Sammy.
Howdy, guys. Good to be on here. Thanks, Gabe.
And no worries. So later on this week, we're going to be talking about nonprofits, getting involved with your community. We're also going to be talking about photography and like how that industry is shaking up. So join us on Expert35. You can actually text the number on the screen, text Expert35 if you want to get involved. But like I said, today we've got a really interesting opportunity to speak with Sammy. He is a commercial real estate expert, licensed Texas real estate broker. Sammy, you're a Rice Owl. I'm an engineer. You're a mathematician coming into real estate. How did this all happen?
Well, I was a senior at Rice, and I had pretty much finalized my opportunity getting into selling insurance. Okay, believe it or not, it was going to be a good salary. I was like, this is my entry into the game, if you will. And so I was going into my final interview, and after that went really well. They were like, yeah, we're going to send you the hiring letter, this, that, and the other thing. I was like, okay, cool. Early salary, I'll stay in there 18, 24 months and move on. And then I got a phone call from a networking event I had gone that same evening that I find that final meeting with that insurance company.
Oh, wow.
And he said, hey, I saw your resume, from the athletic. He was an old athlete at Rice. He played football. 91, I think. Jeff Mercer, still remember the man. He's a great guy. And so he said, hey, I want to interview you. Do you have time? So I met him the next day, and, he kind of pitched me the program. We really had some strong chemistry. The firm was in Dallas, so I was going to fly to Dallas, and I thought to myself, well, I would rather explore a new city. I had lived in Houston, 20 years, traveled around the world, though. I'm pretty fairly cultured, just grateful to my parents. But long story short, flew out to Dallas. They all loved me over there. They hired me. I was really pumped to do commercial real estate over kind of just selling insurance to like teachers and stuff. Right. I have so similar sort of sales opportunity, but a much different sort of knowledge, jargon, and mindset. And that resonated more.
And you got to look at the numbers. I mean, both insurance, but insurance, you have to look at the numbers in retrospect, like what's your exposure here? You're looking at it. Hey, what's the income potential? Like how you're going to be, you can look at it both on an exposure side, but also on a business side.
Sure. Yeah.
So
yeah. And the insurance deal was salaried. I knew this was an all commissions, small draw up front, but the opportunity, as pitched to me was all and more than what I had expected. So, got to extend the olive branch, like we were talking about earlier, to the new guys, to the new college graduates. And, I am hiring. We are ramping up here. It's a pretty exciting time for real estate, commercial and residential.
Your license recently. So what was that process like?
Well, that was just 2 weeks. Gabriel, no lie, about 12 hours a day of studying for almost 12 days. And then I took the final exam, the state and the national portion. I passed it with flying colors, but I kind of think I overstudied. But I really didn't want to fail because I had promised a lot of, told a lot of people. It's like, hey, I'm getting my broker's license. Hey, I'm a licensed broker. So I didn't want to go back and, hey, guys, sorry I failed. Here's my failure, but got to work hard next time. It's like, no, I'm going to nip it in the bud and I'm going to take care of it now.
Some advice for somebody that wants to get into that space. What do you recommend in terms of some of the tools and?
The first thing I would say to anybody is where you live. Okay, do you love the city that you're in? Because remember, real estate, especially commercial, this is a tangible product. I can't harp on that enough. This is not something. You can go on LoopNet and sort of scroll and. Google Maps and do Street View and all of that, and that's helpful. And you can measure the buildings, super helpful. But the only way you're going to fall in love with the business is if you're able to see it and have like a certain resonance with just doing real estate transactions. So the first thing I would say is ask yourself, do you love your city? And if you don't, then you need to find a city first that you love.
Right. Yes. Move.
You need to stay there. You're going to be there long term. This is not a job, man. This is not a 9 to 5. This is pure entrepreneurial. This is the original gangster of entrepreneurials. Okay. So that spirit is there. It's still flaming and it's exciting. But at the same time, it takes a certain mindset. So you love your city. And then, I would say network. I would say try to just maybe find some top experts. I have a long list of competitors I could maybe put on there. Email someone in their office and say, hey,
Sure.
I'm interested. I'm working on working on my real estate courses. It's a 180-hour program. It probably takes you 30 days to do if you're diligent.
Mm-hmm.
Get your license, build that network, because real estate's all about your network. You're only as good as your network in real estate.
Right.
More so than in other industries, to be quite honest. And then, get your sponsorship after you pass the exam. You have to take fingerprints, all of that stuff.
Right. Well,
Get
what's
license.
interesting about real estate is it's a one opportunity, right? It's like, oh, there's houses everywhere, but that house, it's only that one house.
Mhm.
That office building is only that one. So if you don't have the connection and you're not in the conversation before it becomes a contract, you're not going to get the project.
Correct.
Now, you can always buy it, but you're not going to be able to do the transaction. Like, it really is a network. How would you rate your mentors? How did you reach out? How did you get? Because I imagine this is heavily mentored, right? You don't want to just be like, oh, I got money to go into real estate. You kind of want to.
I mean, some people are like that, but
Sure.
for 95-1 odds that you're going to be able to pull this off on your own, right?
Mhm.
The value here that you bring, when we talk about the network, it's you kind of nailed it. It's like the value you bring is the people that you bring, is the interest that you're generating, right? You're creating the market. You're literally a market mover. That's the whole vision here.
Right.
And then eventually, you want to invest, with your, with partners and own buildings and develop large projects. I mean, that's the vision. You want to change the landscape that you see today. So in 20 years, it's like, that horizon that you see, I built it. So,
Right.
that's exciting stuff, right? And also, the community aspect of it, Gabriel, is super important. I mean, when you're working, these are human beings that are inside the buildings, and I can't harp on that enough to my new agents. It's like, you need to make sure that they're being taken care of.
Right.
You're answering their phone calls if you're on the property management side. You're taking care of repairs. Like, this isn't just, oh, I make the deal. Thank you, sir. See you later. It's not like that. It's not like, no, you got to be there consistently. And that's how, you make a $10,000 commission. It's like wonderful. But that same individual in 3-4 years is going to transact likely a bigger deal. And he's going to remember you if you gave him that experience.
Right. It's how you manage that relationship. Absolutely. Well, let's get into it. We already got some questions popping up. People want to know about investments, but what are the real estate opportunities in Houston right now?
I would say the real estate opportunities on the buy side are in retail and office. So, we need to look out there. We need to drive the market, see where the vacancies are during business hours, right? And then if a building strikes you, jot down that address, take it back home, maybe pull it up on LoopNet, what have you. Likely it might not be available, but you'll be able to find who owns the building. I could help you find who owns the building. It's pretty easy. Make a phone call. Might take you 10.
Right.
But that's really the game. I mean, you just got to find these off-market properties, because anybody can find these investments online. It says $1.5 million, or even a smaller deal, 600K. Anybody can find those deals online. But if you want to make a good deal, right, you got to be out there. And if you don't have the time to get out there, then I encourage you to find someone you trust, right? An agent, a broker who you trust, who knows the game, who cares about you more than their commission. Because at the end of the day, it's not about the money, man. It's about you.
Right.
Who you're helping, I should say, more importantly. Because when you provide value, this, Gabe, when you provide value, you're going to get it 10 times, if not more. I mean, we nailed that this morning in our meeting. So, it's the opportunities in retail and office right now, especially on the leasing side. If you're a tenant, I encourage you, if you've got a lease coming up, your expiration's coming up, give me a call, give your agent a call, give your broker a call. Let them know, hey, what are my opportunities? I think that soon, in 3 months, we'll see more buy-side opportunity. Right now, the buy-side is slim. I mean, if you find a good deal, congrats. I have a couple in my back pocket, but really they're slim, because the sellers are holding on tight. They're like, I'm not going to sell for a discount through this. I can weather another
Unless
6
they're
to 12.
hurting. Right.
Yeah, and most of those guys, remember, these guys are rich.
Right. Well, that's why they got it.
They can hold out. They can hold out.
Here's a question from Jana. What should I look for when looking for an investment property?
I would look for, well, the first thing I would look for is what's the construction type, okay? Is it metal? Is it tilt wall, right? Is it masonry? Is it brick? Is it just a wood frame? So that's the first thing, because that determines my frame value. That determines, how much value I can generate from it, right? Because that's the whole point. We're trying to make money here. So the first thing I would look for is what's the type of construction, what's the age, okay? And then I would start thinking location. So
Mhm.
now we're thinking location. Okay, what's what's the economy like? What's the demographics around it? What is it industrial? Is it an office little submarket? Is there a bunch of homes nearby? Right, because Houston's a shotgun city. It's like you have a massive office building next to a pier and beam dilapidated house. I mean, that's just the way it is here. So likely you're not going to have all of these things perfect in a line. They never are, right? But that's part of the risk here. And then the next thing I would look for is there a tenant in there, right? Is it occupied? What's their business? And then of course, likely if it's on the market for sale, ask for a rent roll. Always ask for a rent roll. Ask for an operating and expense statement.
Mhm.
The income and expenses of just the property, right? Sellers should have that. If they don't have that, they're not real sellers.
Right, and that's great point, right? Rent roll. Explain what they should see, not just like, oh, here's the 5 people that are leasing, right? It should
Yeah,
show like a
sure,
history. It's like a pro
absolutely.
forma.
It's I would say it's more like actuals.
Mhm.
It's like a cross section of
Okay.
what the property looks like today. So what it'll have, it'll be in a spreadsheet format, right? Like
Mhm.
probably in Excel, or maybe they
But
put
how
in a
many how
PDF.
many years back does it go, or is it just like a snapshot now?
It's a snapshot of today. So it'll
Oh,
say
okay.
the tenant, it'll say the square footage, it'll say their base rent that they're paying, it'll say the operating expenses that they're paying, it'll say um, the lease term, when
Mhm.
they signed, lease start, and then lease expiration, and then any notes.
We're gonna put those in. So after this, Sammy, you're gonna put in those points because when people get ask for a rent roll, they want to make sure that they're getting these things.
Correct.
Otherwise, they're just getting a piece of paper saying like, "Look."
Yeah, and a lot of those sellers, man, when they're selling it by themselves, they're gonna try and trick you, man.
For sure.
They're gonna try and trick you. They're gonna not inflate the rates because that's very illegal. But what
Sure.
they're gonna do is make the operating expenses kind of fudgy. Like they
Hmm.
might not include something, an expense that is normally an expense for a manager or an owner,
Yeah.
but they're not incurring that expense for one reason or another, right? So
Right.
and they're never gonna have reserves, and they're never gonna have vacancy factors in there either. So you
Right.
do need someone on the financial side very knowledgeable about how to pro forma these deals, because when they say, "Oh, the cap rate's 10% or the cap rate's 9%," that's not the case.
Sure.
95% of the time, that's not the case.
Right. No, you want to look at the finances. We got a great question from Jennifer about the zoning, but before we get into the zoning, also talk about like the process, right? Because you definitely want to get like a phase one. You want to get some historicals on the property. I've seen horror stories where an industrial property was operating. It was a pesticide company, and they ended up leaving, taking all their equipment, and they sold. They almost gave the land away as is to a farmer. And then that farmer ended up, that project became a super fun project from the US, from the EPA, because it was so contaminated. So talk a little bit about, we talked about the financial, but what about like the process and
Yeah, the process. The first thing you want to do, get a survey. Boom. All right. Look for any easements. Are there easements on the site? What are they? Power? Are they pipe easements? Are they electrical easements? What's going on that disallows you to build? And the survey will always say that, right? 9 times out of 10, the survey will just have the improvement on where, with dimensions, the dimensions of the dirt, and then it'll have like lines, or like really they're like um, not connected, disconnected lines, and it'll show, and it'll say like easement 25 feet. Also, the next thing is the setback from the street, any major frontage that it's got. How far back from the street is the land set back? That's really, really important to know, because then, because you're paying for the whole dirt all the way up to the street, or whatever is
you just
public.
can't use it.
Exactly, you can't use it. So the square footage that you're actually able to build on is 99% of the chance much less,
Mhm.
than what you're paying for. But that's just part of it. So that's the next thing I would look for. And then we got to look at any title restrictions, right? So for example, we did a deal with someone at our BNI group, and it was a residential deal. He's trying to convert the permitting to commercial. He's having a tough time. They're making him do a full rebuild, and it's costing him more than he was hoping for. to get the permitting redone to commercial. So a lot of these guys are chasing those residential converting to commercial deals, and that's totally fine and well. You just need to make sure you have someone that's going to be able to navigate the permitting process.
Well, and
Now,
make sure that the finances work out too, because there's a point where, hey, do you have the resources, and it's still going to give the ROI, right, as you
Correct.
keep investing in it. What about zoning? So Jennifer's question is really important. How's Houston's zoning rules affect commercial real estate?
It's case by case, but for the most part, I believe, just based on my experience, it's really to the detriment of valuations more than anything. So it affects Houston, in my opinion, in a negative way. Now, I'm not trying to say we need to put zoning in. No, I love this city because there's no zoning. I'm not going to advocate for zoning. No, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this city as it is because I love it. But the way that it's affecting our valuations is really tough because, okay, for example, someone has a really good piece of property with some frontage. Now, the guy next to him, and he sells it for a high price because they're gonna do a retail development on it. Now the guy is right next to him. He has the same frontage, but for whatever reason, his dirt didn't get chosen, I guess, for that project. And let's just assume that they were for sale at the same time and this, that, and the other thing. Okay, now the guy who sold and they developed the retail property, he's fat and happy. But the guy next door, he knows how much he sold for. But his property, right, is not ideal for the highest and best use. That's a technical term. Everyone needs to know. The highest and best use for this guy neighboring's property is not retail, right? It could be office, right? So, but he's going to want to sell his land for the value that the retail guy got. That's not going to happen, period.
Oh,
it's never going to happen.
Good point.
It's never, ever, 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 ever going to happen. Everyone does that, by the way.
Right.
Everyone is like, I'm going to sell it for that $25 a foot valuation because Mr. Joe Schmo over here sold it for that much.
Well,
so
that's
he's like, what's wrong with my land?
Right. There's a great point. Jana is pointing out that you can also ask for an insurance losses on the property. Right, because we were talking about historical, we were talking about easements, but yeah, Janet, great point. Because now you can see maybe there was a fire there, maybe there was something else, insurance claims can be environmental too.
Correct.
Right? Underground storage tanks. Oh my Lord. Let's talk about no, let's not talk about it.
Right. Well, that's the other thing that before I got into the zoning, the next thing I was going to say is you need to look at your environmentals, get that phase 1 study done, see what issues there may have been historically on the property, and that also coincides with insurance losses, just like Jana said. So absolutely, Jana, yeah, that's extremely important to have before you close. Take a look at that. And that should come with any environmental studies, right? That's really the final sort of T you want to cross. I mean, you can get an inspection, but for commercial deals, most of the time you're going to take this deal as is, and you're going to just rehab. I mean, there's money to be made here. So,
and the phase 1s are really interesting because they'll show you plumes, they'll show you birds that live in the environment, they'll show you all kinds of things that sometimes you don't even know. And because of the non-zoning, so back to that question and the insurance claims, they'll tell you things that you wouldn't even know. Like I was looking at a property just like south of downtown, and it was, it was just there was a pipe that ran right underneath it.
Too bad.
No chance. But the guy wanted top dollar, but that's why he was doing it for sale by himself, right? Here's a great question for you, Sammy. Is like saying, how are you advertising landlords, or how are landlords being advertised in these times?
Advised. How do I advise the landlords right now? I would say retention. Keep your tenants. Make sure that they feel safe in this environment. It's understandable how things are fearful in this environment, and so you need to make sure that people definitely feel safe and that you're keeping the retention. The best way to keep the retention is by talking to them. Number one, talk to them. Just have conversations. You're not asking. Don't call them because you want a rent increase. Call them just to say how you're doing. So certainly alter the protocol to align with the COVID protocols. Number one, obviously. And then number two, keep your tenants happy. Just talk to them. Be empathetic. Because you want to keep that retention. I know some tenants, they're so happy with their landlord that they did not, they kept paying their landlord their rents during March and April when we had the full-on quarantine. So that human factor, that's the intangible that a lot of people sometimes neglect because maybe they're overburdened. Then you need to get property managers, right? Let's talk property managers. So those property managers are very keen, right, to ensuring tenant compliance, right, with federal and state mandates, and also to keep the peace, if you will, with the tenants.
Right.
So that's really
great. Here's a great little question. It's like, where's the smart money? right? We talked about earlier. We were talking about hotels and retails, and
Yeah, the smart money is looking for undesirable retail right now,
Mhm.
undesirable retail opportunities, right? So maybe a building on the corner of Bel Air and Sinat, right? That sort of west of Chinatown here in Houston. Those tenants have vacated pretty much completely, right?
Wow.
I think there's lots of opportunity there. So that's undesirable retail right now because it's not generating income. It might need a full facelift, right? So that's money up front, but that's a value add deal. Those are value add deals. Also on the Pasadena side, right? There's a couple of
Mhm.
deals in Pasadena. So undesirable retail. I would say office as well, but the office market is really tough to break into right now on the buy side because those sellers are like, no way I'm selling. No way I'm going to try to take a discount. I'm in no, I have
Yeah,
no concern with
I
this
like your
value.
statement. These guys are rich; they can hold it.
Straight up, they're rich, man. Far richer than you know. Far richer
Right.
than you know.
All right, my favorite part of the show. We're obviously talking about investment. We're talking about commercial real estate, potentially industrial real estate. What are 3 things we can do now if we want to get into this?
So, we assume there's an interest here, right? I would say take care of yourself, number one. Okay, try to build a nest egg, and you might be trading stocks, you might be trading options, you might be trading currencies, but if there's an interest to have something tangible, right, that you can have and literally hold, um, you know that would be step one. I would then take a look at where you live. Maybe go on Google Maps here, kind of take a screenshot, or scroll around and see, okay, what's within 5 miles of where I live. Because if you're seriously interested in investing in something and you want to do it on your own, you have that entrepreneurial spirit fire burning within. I would stay close to home. I would not invest in a deal 100 miles away or 30 miles away unless you're working with a broker. That's different. But if you're trying to pull this on your own, which is totally possible, and I encourage it. That's actually my whole role. I want to encourage people to be able to do this on their own. But you drive within 5 miles. Look for buildings, commercial side, right? Whatever you're interested in, retail, office, industrial, whatever it might be. I would pick one though. I wouldn't just like look at all of the everything. No, I would pick one kind of product, whether that be industrial, office, or retail. Those are the 3 just kind of simple ones. Pick one, drive around the market, and just kind of take notes. See what parking lots are vacant during business hours. See what are jam packed during business hours. Those are the biggest opportunities. So yeah, so identify your market. I would drive it, and then if you find a building that you really like, you can go on the Secretary of State website, or you can go to HCAT. Put the entity for that property into the Social Security Secretary of State website. They'll give you the registered agents for that entity, right? Then you can kind of white pages or whatever, maybe find a phone number and try to figure out who owns it and introduce yourself kindly. See if you can set a meeting. These deals are done face to face. These deals are not done over the phone. I can't say that enough. I cannot say that. You will never, ever, ever make a good deal digitally online, or someone texting you, hey, ARV value, whatever that even means. So commercial deals are done face to face. This is just, I mean, I can't stress that enough. Again, I'm sorry, but drive it, identify it, try to get find information, and then make some phone calls, or call your agent, call your broker, get him or her to help you out, to get in contact if you've got a day job, obviously trying to make a living. So those are sort of the 3 things that I would do if you're keenly interested in the commercial real estate.
So important and so timely. Sammy, thank you so much for being on the show. This
You're
has
welcome.
like been super informative. I'm like thinking, man, I got to get into some more driving around. Now it's hard now driving around because of this COVID deal. Maybe, parking lots won't represent how they normally operate. So that's probably
Exactly.
a consideration.
But there's still a desirability in that. I mean, there's still opportunity, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. I got to ask because it's apparently a thing on your back wall. Jennifer wants to know what's up with that duck?
This was a gift from my mother when I was 2 years old. So I've always had it on the wall, and it's just like a chick with a little, bandana on. It's just the cutest thing, and I absolutely, it's all nostalgia here. I thought it was
Right.
fitting just to have that here. Here I am, professional in the market, and I still have this super soft spot. So
Amazing. I love your human element. You've got some things, some questions that you're going to have to answer. So we're going to put Sammy on the chat so he can answer a bunch of questions because there's so many things that we didn't have time to. But I do want to put you and put those notes in there because so much great information. And no, really appreciate having you on the show today, Sammy. Thanks for being with us on Expert 35.
You're welcome. Anytime. Thanks, Gabe.
All right, guys, that was Sammy. Just keep dropping so much knowledge about how to be involved, how the real estate market is changing. If you want to join the conversation, Expert08 for Sammy, Expert35 to be on our show or to learn more about how to get involved with our community. We'd love to see you guys soon. We're going to be talking about getting involved with your community. We're going to talk about photography. We're going to talk about all kinds of different experts helping us get through this and like the new economy. So again, thanks for being with us on Expert35. I'm your host, Gabriel Garcia.